Months passed and life moved on. I had immersed myself in my studies and tried my best to focus on my goals. The years at college were supposed to be some of the most exciting times of my life, but I had often found myself in a quiet battle with my heart. The pain of unrequited love, of longing for someone who could never belong to me, had weighed heavily on me. But I had learned to live with it, to keep going, even though it felt like I was carrying a heavy burden. I still thought about Ethan often, but I had made peace with the reality that he would always be a part of my past, a chapter I had to leave behind. He had his life, and I had mine. I wasn't angry at him anymore. I didn't feel bitter. But there were moments, like when I sat in the cafe we used to visit together, when I wondered what could have been if circumstances had been different. But wishing for things that could never happen only hurt me further, and I knew that. So I chose to move forward. That was until one unexpected evening. I had just finished an exhausting week of final exams and was walking back to my apartment, my arms loaded with textbooks and notes. It had been a long day, and all I wanted to do was collapse onto my bed and sleep for hours. But as I rounded the corner near the park, I saw him, Ethan. He was sitting on the same bench we had once shared, reading a book, looking completely at ease with the world around him. For a moment, I froze. My heart pounded, my breath caught in my throat, time seemed to slow, and I was suddenly overcome with emotions I thought I had buried deep inside me. It had been nearly a year since we had last spoken, and seeing him again stirred something in me that I wasn't ready to face. I could feel the familiar ache in my chest, the pull toward him, even though I knew how complicated things were. But this time, something was different. There was no pain. There was just a strange calm, like I had finally come to terms with everything that had happened. I hesitated for a moment, unsure of what to do. But before I could walk away, Ethan looked up, his eyes meeting mine. A flicker of recognition passed over his face, followed by a smile, warm, familiar, and inviting. He stood up, brushing off his jeans, and walked toward me. "Lily," he said, his voice soft, but full of that same warmth that had always been there. "It's been a long time." I nodded, feeling the weight of his words. "Yeah, it has." He gave me a sheepish grin. "I never really expected to run into you like this, but I'm glad it happened. How are you?" I couldn't help but smile at the genuine concern in his voice. It was the same Ethan I had known, the one who had always made me feel seen, heard, and understood. "I'm good," I said, though I wasn't entirely sure if that was the truth. It's been a busy few months, finals and everything else. We stood there for a few moments, the awkwardness between us slowly dissipating. Neither of us really knew what to say. The years had passed, but the feelings hadn't gone away. They were just buried deep beneath the surface, waiting to be acknowledged. Finally, Ethan broke the silence. "I've thought about you, you know," he said quietly, almost as if he was speaking to himself. "I've missed our talks, the way we used to just sit and talk about anything and everything. I didn't realize how much I valued that until it was gone." My heart fluttered in my chest. The words he spoke were simple, but they carried so much weight. I had missed him too. I had missed the connection we once shared, the bond that felt like it could withstand anything. But I knew that connection had changed, and it was no longer the same. "I've missed that too," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "But a lot has changed since then." He nodded, looking at the ground for a moment. Yeah, I know. And I'm sorry, Lily, for everything. I shouldn't have let things get so complicated. I should have been clearer with you from the beginning, instead of letting it drag on. I care about you. I always have. But I couldn't give you what you deserved. I could feel the weight of his apology, but I didn't know how to respond. The truth was, I didn't need his apology anymore. I had already forgiven him. What hurt more than anything was that we could never go back to what we had. We couldn't erase the past, and we couldn't pretend that we could have the future we once dreamed about. Life had changed, and so had we. I understand, Ethan, I sent softly, meeting his gaze. You don't have to apologize. I know you had your reasons. We were both just in different places, and it wasn't meant to be. There was a long silence, and for a moment, we just stood there. Two people caught in the limbo of what had been and what could never be. Ethan took a deep breath, as if gathering the courage to say something he had been holding back. You're right, he said finally. It wasn't meant to be. But I need you to know that you were never just another person to me. You were important. You still are. I've been trying to move on, to make sense of everything, but I couldn't stop thinking about you. His words hit me harder than I expected. They were kind, genuine, but they were also filled with a deep sadness. Ethan had always been a free spirit, someone who went after what he wanted without hesitation. But in that moment, I realized that his journey had been one of self-discovery, and it was something he had to do alone. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. I know, and I'll always care about you. But I've learned that sometimes love doesn't work out the way we want it to, and that's okay. We stood there for a while longer, talking about our lives, about where we were headed, about the things that had changed. We laughed about the good memories, reminiscing about the times we had shared, and for a moment it felt like no time had passed at all. But deep down we both knew that things had changed. The connection we once had was no longer the same, and as much as I had hoped for a different ending, I knew this was the closure we both needed. When we finally said goodbye, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. I wasn't angry, I wasn't bitter. I had accepted what had happened. I had accepted that love doesn't always turn out the way we envision it. Sometimes it's messy and painful, and other times it's about learning to let go and move on. Ethan walked away, his figure disappearing into the distance, and I stood there for a while, watching him go. It was the end of something beautiful, but also the beginning of something new. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew that I was ready to embrace it, ready to move forward, and ready to love again, not just someone else, but myself. And in that moment, I realized that true love is not just about being with someone else. It's about learning to love yourself, to accept the past for what it was, and to move forward with an open heart. Love, in all its forms, teaches us the most valuable lessons about who we are, what we deserve, and how to find peace in the face of heartbreak.